A few years ago, I was so excited because I found out that the belly dancers who I grew up around, because my uncle had this amazing East African restaurant in Gastown in Vancouver for over 20 years, the belly dancers that used to dance there that were amazing were teaching classes. And I was like, oh my God, it just took me back to like when I was a child and watching them and just wowed by what they were doing and thinking it was like superhuman. And to find out that they were teaching classes a few years ago, I just jumped on it. I was like, I want to find out, how they did these incredible things that I used to watch as a kid. So I'm sure when I told my uncle about it, he was thrilled for me and said, like, make sure you say hi to them for me and all of that, of course. But it was interesting. Another family member of mine, when I don't remember if I told her or maybe I said it like in front of a couple of family members, like, and she said, instead of getting excited for me, she kind of hesitated, and then she said, just be careful. You don't want them to ruin your reputation. And I was like, what? Like, seriously? I mean, my heart goes out to, family members or friends or anybody who has like a notion about what different dances and dancers or what the connotations are around it. But I just felt so like my heart just sank because I'm like, I'm excited about this. And when she reacted like that, it just made me think, like, it's so interesting how not only do different people have their ideas of what different dances mean or what they say to other people about you as the dancer or you as the person who's joining a community like that, but it also like kind of hits you in terms of like what the history, like it makes me think about the history of these dances and how some of them were very, very accepted very quickly and a lot of them weren't, or they have a history of being connected to brothels and prostitution, or women wearing less clothing and trying to entice men to, like, it was more like a sexual thing or a sensual thing. I mean, I'm sure some of those things are true, like, and I tried to read into, I tried to go into the history, like learning a little bit about the history of tango and its connotations from coming from like this idea that it was like lower class, and some other Latin dances and even belly dance and things like that. But I got lost in this whole of like, I mean, I would rather sit down with someone that actually experienced it, because I realized I don't want to share with you things that I'm just reading about and not getting the full-on truth information about. And the other part of it is that it was kind of sad for me to read these things, not because I don't think that, like, it's not that I think everything out there about it is untrue, but the part that made me really annoyed and saddened is that there is so much history out there about the empowerment of dance. Like, the history of dance, yes, might have some historical, connections to things that we might not see as like the most classy of environment or whatever, but there's also, dance was a way to like celebrate initiation into another stage of life. It was a way for people to speak when they didn't have rights to express in other ways. The reason I'm wearing this is I just came from a live show outdoors, and it was different artists, different bands from around the world playing their music and dancing, but also speaking about how dance and music was their way to express what they were fighting for as people and as human beings, and for equality among the sexes, equality among the races, equality amongst different cultures, different skin colors. And it was a way to speak out when they didn't have other means to speak out. And it was empowering. It wasn't a lowering of status or whatever. It was actually like a way to break free of these chains and break free of these limitations that were put on them, on these people that didn't deserve to be treated this way. So dance also has a history of liberty and expression and fighting for our rights and celebrating like marriages and moving into another stage of our development as women, as men, going from children to adulthood. Even when I went to Cuba, like, there was so much going on politically there in terms of people wanting to escape out of their country because they were being ruled in a way that held them, and they weren't being acknowledged for all the work and time and energy that they were putting into what their dreams were. Like, they weren't even allowed to dream because their dreams were being cut off by these rigid rules of what they can and couldn't do and where they can and couldn't go. So they were shaking their hips and moving their bodies to express what they weren't allowed to express the way that other people can when they are allowed to travel and allowed to make more money or allowed to be acknowledged and compensated for the really hard jobs and work that they do. Like, people were trying to escape Cuba to get away from those rigid rules, and it was really difficult to escape, and it was sad to watch them that way, but it was absolutely like phenomenal and so inspiring to see the way that they use their bodies to like say things and to but say it in a way that was really strong and full of fire and like we're not taking this, like maybe you can close us off into a little area and not allow us to take up space around the world and travel and, you know, have these big dreams and go for them, but we're going to take up space in another way, in our bodies, through our bodies. We're going to speak through our bodies and through our emotions that are going to show up in how we move. And so yeah, when people say things like, again, you know, I don't have anything against like different family or friends or people's own opinions about things, but it's kind of almost comical to me, but also really makes me feel a little bit sad that I was excited to learn dancing from these women and also men, belly dancers that were dancing at the restaurant, that I, like I said, grew up thinking that what they could do and what they were doing was like impossible. Like, how are they balancing these sores on their noses or on their foreheads and, you know, dancing with fire and like just the way that they move themselves, like, and yes, even the way that they were dressing, and they had so much confidence to like not worry about what other people were thinking and just say like, hey, we're showing like what we can do and what people have the capacity to do. And I was excited to learn to be like that, whereas someone else was like, be careful, because that might be too much for some people, and you don't want other people to think that you're too much or you're like that, you know? And I was like, oh my God, this is way too much of being too concerned about what other people think. And it was actually motivated me more to want to take classes with these women, because they had to break free from what, you know, maybe their family members or their society or culture thought was appropriate for them. And I was like, dance should be celebrated for how empowering it is, not brought down again like maybe in the past it was looked down upon. Like, haven't we come really far from that now? We should have. And so it was kind of, yeah, it made me think about history and how, like, it would be so, you know, to be able to, I'm sure there are classes, I've heard of classes like this in different places and from different people, but like, just to emphasize that empowerment through dance, and that it's not just a now thing, but historically dance, you know, native dancing, like all of that was to celebrate like the gods and the orishas and like the spirits and connection to divine. It wasn't all about like, oh, you're doing something that's inappropriate. And so yeah, for me that was really impactful to like see other people's reaction, and then that being a reminder to me that I don't want to carry on this like idea that this amazing activity, this amazing mode of expression is something to look down on. And actually I was taking some different types of non-partner dance, like a little bit of belly dance, a little bit of like I dabbled a little bit in the hip hop and house dance, and through that dance school, I met this other Indian girl who was a younger Indian girl, and she did a lot of belly dance, and she was teaching belly dance through that school, and she told me that I don't think it was her parents, but it was like maybe an uncle or like maybe her father, something like that, said like he ended up seeing some of her videos of teaching classes and performing her belly dance, and he said to her, I'm going to pray for you. Please stop doing what you're doing, because like he was basically saying it's really shameful to our family and for you, and people are going to judge you for being that way. And her and I were just looking at each other. Like, again, it was this preconceived notion that dressing a certain way or moving a certain way means that you are a certain type of person. And also then it also like says that the family member or the person around you who's warning you to not do that too much, and like, I'll pray for you, as if she's like sinning. That person is so fixated on what other people will think, and it's such an old way of thinking. But again, on the one hand, it's like an old way of thinking, but it's also forgetting that in the really, again, like historical side of dance, like old and like hundreds of years ago kind of thing, dance was not looked at like that in every aspect of it, of its being. It was for celebration. It was for, like, it wasn't a class thing. It wasn't like, oh, if you're of this class, you dance like this, and if you're, or you don't dance. If you're classy, you don't dance. Like, it wasn't always like that. It was like, if you are wanting to connect with divinity and the gods, you dance, you use your body to connect to spirit. And if you're going from one stage of your, growing up and going into adulthood, like, we use dance to celebrate. We use dance to celebrate when two people fall in love and get married and have a union together. Like, it's also a celebration. And yeah, this belly dancer, a really young girl, she laughed at me. She goes, like, she just kind of would play along with her family and say, oh, okay, like, thanks for praying for me. Like, she didn't know what to say, because she's like, I'm not going to argue with them. Like, I'm not going to change their mind. But I love what I do, and I know that I'm not doing anything wrong, but their way of thinking about it is that you must have gone on the wrong path to be like doing this thing that we look down upon. So I'm going to pray for you and hope that you get back on the right path. And I was like, wow, like, and this girl was an amazing dancer, and she was really fun at teaching, and she was obviously really passionate about it. But what could you do? Like, I'm so glad that she just kind of decided, like, I'm not going to spend my time arguing with them. I'm going to spend my time really, like, honing this craft and enjoying the dancing, and secretly knowing that it empowers me so much as a woman, and actually makes me classier. And not even just for women, but for anyone. It brings her confidence. It teaches her how to teach other people how to build their own confidence and to enjoy life. And she's like, I want to build the new generation of people who understand the empowerment that is in dance. So yeah, I just thought about this, and I was like, we need to really bring out and remind people of the history of dance as, like, celebrating rites of passage and celebrating our humanity and its connection to divine, and celebrating, like, how our bodies, we're souls, we're bodies, and we're our minds. Like, all three are all connected, and that it's something that we should be excited about, not fearful of showing it to people and stuff like that. And yeah, I was just at this event that really solidified that idea of, like, dance is so much more than, just because you see people moving their hips in a sensual, sexy kind of way, or in a way that might make other people uncomfortable because they're not used to seeing that, or they've been told that that's wrong or whatever. Like, that's in those people's heads. And there's so much more going on that is actually really really brings out this freedom to be our human, expressive, like, almighty, equal, like, equality between all of us selves, and to use dance as that empowering tool, rather than saying, oh, she's like this kind of dancer, she should be careful because other people might look down on her, or he's this, like, this kind of, he moves in this way, like, to judge people like that, it's kind of ignorant. And I'm so excited that I'm in the world of, like, understanding how dance can bring us so much that other things can't. And I'm gonna keep finding ways to do it. I hope you do as well. Thanks for listening.